Welcome to Not Work, Myth, and Storytelling. This is the show where ancestral wisdom meets the modern imagination. I'm your host and lead storyteller, Marisa Gowdy. I'm a myth worker, a story healer, and a writing coach. I'm the author of The Sovereignty Knot, A Woman's Way to Freedom, Power, Love, and Magic, and the founder of the Writer's Knot and Author's Knot communities. On Not Work, we explore the mythology and folklore of Ireland and beyond. Whether you're drawn to Celtic culture and the power of the landscape, or whether you just like a good story and expansive conversation, you're in the right place. Fulcha. If you love what you hear and want to support the show, I'd be so grateful if you become a paid subscriber to my Myth is Medicine newsletter over on Substack. Look for the link at the top of the show notes or visit mythismedicine.substack.com. Season 6, Episode 43, Ghlúine of the Burren, the Midwife of County Clare, with Sarah Richardson. Before we hear Sarah's story and dive into conversation, I wanted to let you know this is going to be the last episode of Season 6. I'm going to be taking something of a sabbatical, probably between here at the very end of January through till March, giving myself a nice, long, late winter, early spring rest. It has been such an honor and a pleasure to create the last year of episodes for you, almost without a break, and I am definitely ready to set down the microphone for just a little while, to go back to my books, to go back to my words, and start building up the stores of story within myself so I can bring them to you. I can promise you that I'm already setting up conversations with a whole new raft of guests to bring you new stories as we reach into the spring and beyond in 2026. I would invite you to join me over at Myth is Medicine, where I'll continue to publish and also be running my Myth Workers salons. Those happen on Sunday mornings if you're in the East Coast of America. And this is a wonderful time to gather together with myth lovers and story lovers, those who really want to dive into the meaning behind the meaning of stories. I start each session with a story. Often it'll be something I'll be telling for the very first time and will only share on the podcast later. The next one we have coming up is on February 15th. If you'd like to join us, please become a paid subscriber at mythismedicine.substack.com. And now, without further ado, I'm so excited to offer you the last of what has become a trinity of in-bulk episodes. And our storyteller and guest is Sarah Richardson. She's the author of Woman, A Guide to Living Your Best Life by Setting Yourself Free and Coming Home to Your True Self. She's a midwife of conscious conception, birth, death, and rebirth. She's a woman of the medicine way. Sarah brings over 15 years of experience in the medical field as a registered midwife and the mysteries which are steeped into her lineage. Her work is a safe, welcoming hand and a cheeky wink across the veil, guiding others into deeper connection with the unseen and the ancestors. She serves as a living portal into the otherworld, inviting others to remember, reclaim, reconnect, and rejoice in the fullness of their authentic selves. Her soul's devotion is to the goddess in all her forms, restoring our connection to sacred source so we can receive the radiant, embodied, big life that is our birthright. She's the founder of the Womb and Word Collective and the co-founder of Dream Midwifery, a project that she runs with another friend of the podcast, Jen Murphy. I invite you to find more about Sarah and her work over on Substack, the Womb and Word Collective, as well as on Instagram and her website, sarahrichardson.ie. Beginning on February 5th of 2026, Sarah is leading a 9-month global facilitator training in ancient Irish feminine wisdom, healing, and sovereignty. You can learn more about that in the show notes, or again, visit Sarah's website. Now, I'm so excited to welcome Sarah to the show. I am thrilled to welcome Sarah to the podcast today. As is our way on Not Work, Myth, and Storytelling, we first ask the story to speak for itself, and then we'll have a chat about all the ways that it resonates and matters. So Sarah, Fulcha, welcome. Will you tell us the story?
Of course I will. And this story is an interesting one because I wrote it a couple of years ago And we were meant to record it a couple of years ago, but the story did not give me permission until now. So I wrote it in this really old diary and I was going to type it up. And the story did not give me permission to type it up because it's almost like I'm reading it from the Ban Ghlúine's diary, which I think is really interesting. It's also written half in Irish and half in English. So I'll translate as I go. I'll read it in Irish and then I'll read it in English. And then I would say if you don't speak Irish, just let it land because you're going to receive it either way. So this is the Ban Ghlúine of the Burren, and Ban Ghlúine means the woman on her hunkers or the midwife, the cunning woman in Ireland, the wise woman, the Ban Fassa, the fairy doctor, the granny doctor. She was the midwife and she worked with birth and she worked with death. And this is a little snippet into a prayer that I had to her to lead me the way because I'm a midwife and we've lost the Ban Ghlúine, but she's coming back. So you can enjoy this story. So the Ban Ghlúine of the Burren. Ban Ghlúine, O wise one who has touched new life straight from the other world. One who weaves between ordinary and non-ordinary and dances between birth and death. The one who threads between this thin veil, ancient one, Ban Ghlúine, you who are as old as the stones and as wise as the mountains, as alive as the rivers, humbled by all she has seen, aching heart overflowing with love and truth and connection. O Ban Fassa, tell me some of your stories of wisdom. I ache to understand more of life. See she is the store. Éistigi. Nana is anam dum, agus is misha an Ban Ghlúine ó na Burren e cunte Clare. Tá lán scéalta a gum, agus tá súla gum go bhfuil tú ag tanú leis na scéalta seo. Sit down, my love, listen. Nana is my name, and I am the Ban Ghlúine, the midwife of the Burren in County Clare, and I have a lot of stories, and I hope that you look forward to hearing these stories. Tá na scéaltaí seo faoi bhrón agus áthas le chéile. Níl méid in ann brón a chur in busca amháin agus áthas a chur in busca eile. Tá siad ann le chéile. This story is about sadness, but also happiness. We're not able to separate sadness into one box and happiness into another box. They go together. Láháin, bhí mé ag bailú plantaí néfa, lialú sneantog hua. One day, I was gathering sacred herbs, mugwort and nettle and hawthorn. Bhí mé ag déanamh laias speisialta, cupán té le haibullag tín. I was making a special tea, a tea for a sick stomach. Agus coola mé na cuina néfa on a banshee. I heard the sacred cry of the banshee. Nuair a clushan tú an cuina néfa, tá sé an am súl agus prepare, súl agus ulvu le hai ober néfa. When you hear the sacred cry, it's time to walk and to prepare for your sacred work. So siúil mé, agus siúil mé, agus siúil mé. I walked and I walked and I walked. And nuair a coola mé an cuina seo ag éirí níos láidir, bhí is agam go raibh mé beagnach in aca leis an duine a bhí ag éirí mo cuid obair néfa, mo lámha néfa. So I walked and I walked and I walked, and when I heard that sacred cry growing louder and louder, I knew that I was nearly beside the person that needed my sacred work, my sacred hands, mo lámha néfa. Seas mé ag an clocha mór na Burren, agus thosaigh mé ag conna, agus mothí mé an dríocht ó na sí, agus cunnig mé an cio dríochta, agus bullig mé an bullag néfa. So I stood on this large rock in the Burren and I began to sing. And I began to feel the magic of the she, the magic of the fairies. And I started to see the mist, the magic mist. And then I smelt the sacred smell, birth and death, the thin place. So I followed the mist as it brought me closer and closer to the sacred cries of birth and death. I trust the she, and the she trusts me. We work closely. You can't do this sacred work without the she. So I followed their guidance through the rocks and the stones of the Burren, and the stone people nodded their approval as they guided me in the right direction. And overhead I seen this large cave, and inside the cave there was a woman on all fours keening. She had been taken over by the sacred mist of Danu and the two Danu, and they bring her to a far-off place in the other world. And this is where she meets and she collects her baby. This is how she brings them back. This is a sacred Immram, a voyage of the mother goddess. I know she's entered this altered state just by the look in her eyes. So I crept quietly so as not to disturb this sacred space, because this is a ceremony in which a skilled midwife does not wish to ever disturb. For if she was to disturb this energy, she could risk disturbing the otherworldly Immram. So I crept into the cave and I sat away in the corner. From here, I am away from the birthing field. I am just a presence in this space without interfering. Now it's my time to tend to my foraged herbs. So I tap away at my medicine, taking away the damaged leaves and humming the sacred songs that allow her to go deeper to those places. But I never interfere. And Danu comes to me. She always comes to me when I hum, and she informs me that one of Brigid's babies was not meant to live, and one was to live. The boy was to die, and the girl was to live. This boy will never take their first breath, and the girl will gasp all of life into her cells, and she will go forward and live a great life. And she will learn to grow strong alone, and to live without a brother, without her twin, and she will become sovereign. This is the gift that her brother chose to bestow upon her. Brigid will learn to understand over time, and she will learn about life deeper and deeper. This experience will teach her what love truly means, and she will understand how thin the veil is between life and death. One of her offspring dead, but one so filled with life. I thanked Danu as she placed her hands on Brigid's sacrum, and a swirling spiral of birthing energy began to descend down Brigid's lower back. With a quick nod from Danu, I began to keen. I keened and I keened and I keened, and I opened up portals and channels of energy to allow these souls to come from the other world. And I met Brigid there in the other world, in her soul form. She was aware of what she was to experience, and she had gone to collect them. So I keened and I keened, and I allowed these portals to grow stronger. And I just held the space for Brigid to go where she needed to go. And with one loud guttural grunt, her little boy came through this birthing portal into the world, this sacred birth cave filled with mist in the Burren. Silence, stillness, coldness, dampness, grief. Brigid keened. She shrieked that mother's grief, so loud that all four corners of Ireland heard that cry. Her keen echoed, and the she gathered, and the medicine spirits gathered, all to support Brigid in this grief. The ancestors rose up from the earth beneath us, and I just witnessed, and I hummed my tune. I just witnessed, and I continued to hum my tune. And the stone people came, and the plant people, and all of the elements. And the wind wailed the same grief as Brigid, Ireland responding to her pain. The rain came, that sacred war. Those tears that were cried from the land. Brigid was held, though. She was held in her grief by Ireland, and this comforted her broken heart and her aching womb. Danu placed her hand back on Brigid's sacrum one more time, and that same spiraling birth energy came again, and she winked at me. So I started to hum, and I grew louder and louder, and I again became that channel for the goddess as I sang and I sang and I sang. And Brigid bared down on those stones holding her, as she held one of her sleeping babies close to her breast. Her second baby's head appeared, and Brigid shrieked in a mixture of pain and relief. And I looked deep into her eyes and I whispered, Goheen Tok, Brigid, Goheen Tok. Your grief will be soothed by the goddess in time, but I am here, Brigid. I am here. And Brigid's tears fell as she bared down one last time. And her baby girl fell into my hands. And as her baby girl let out this huge, loud gasp and cry, all of the life force filled this little one's body. Her body was so filled with life, and the ancient ones celebrated. The she arrived in celebration. The ancestors laughed and started to dance. And Brigid held her baby close by as she relived that whole experience from the other world. And she returned. She took her time, but she returned from the other world. And the blood poured to cleanse her womb. And I witnessed Brigid holding birth and death, and the ache and the joy in her heart. I witnessed Brigid hold all of life, life and the absence of life, love with somewhere to go and love with nowhere to go, grief and celebration, love and suffering, all of it held in her heart. All of the gods and the goddesses arrived to bless this birth and death ceremony. The ancestors surrounded Brigid, her babies, and they started to spiral around her. I stayed with Brigid for 2 weeks after, and we tended to both of her babies in very different ways. I packed her womb with good herbs, and I buried her baby boy underneath a hawthorn tree in a beautiful ceremony with the ancestors. We keened together until 2 weeks later when his soul passed over. I massaged her tummy and I expelled that grief. I told her stories about my life wandering the Burren in my bare feet, holding life and holding death. And we parted ways on the night of the full moon in February. She went on to have many more children. That daughter was a strong woman, a sovereign woman, and she was strengthened by the loss of her twin brother. She was cracked open by her own grief. It really is a great privilege to weave between the worlds and to touch death and birth. And I can't wait to tell more stories. Shinny.
Oh, that's it. That's it. That's it. Oh, Sarah, thank you. I mean, there's so much to hold here. We're just going to sit with the overflowing of possibility, of the contrasts, of the spectrum, of, the way you're giving us life and the absence of life, grief and celebration, love and suffering, all wrapped in such atmosphere and character and story and placeness. Oh, thank you, Mila.
Oh, my pleasure.
And I love your Irish because it's the kind I can follow. So there was the part of me that said, because I think anyone who, whether you have a bit of Irish and you're trying to track the words, or it just sounds like music to the ears and you're waiting for the translation, this is just going to be one of those episodes that I know people are going to come back to again and again to just keep being with and saying, wait, which Brigid is speaking to me this time? How do I see her? Who is she? Who is the midwife? Who is Danu? Oh, there's so much here. I trust the she and the she trust me. You can't do this kind of work without their guidance. Like,
Yeah.
that's just such, just soul wisdom I'm drinking up to.
Yeah. And I'm curious, like, who was that baby girl? Like, who was she? I want to know about her. Who does she become? Do we know her? Is this somebody we know in the stories? Like, that's what I want to know. There's so much more. It's like we're
Yeah.
left on a cliffhanger.
Yeah. Well, it's like the way Nuala Nagonal talks about the foremothers, right? And there's both that sense of knowing them in your bones, but also having a sense of their deep, deep mystery. And that they become the ancestors who are both such intimate beings to our lives, but also these, they don't often don't have names or faces. They have presence.
Mm,
So, and that's both the most phenomenal comfort and it also leaves us aching. But I guess in a story like this, where you're pairing the happiness and the sadness as constant like bedfellows, I suppose that makes perfect sense.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting because I was inspired because I'm a midwife, and one of my first deliveries, I have two of my first deliveries really stood out to me, but the first one was a baby that was born in the front hall of a hospital, just got like literally just landed and like had her baby. That was my first delivery. And the baby was born in the call in the sack of waters,
Yeah.
which is really lucky. And
Yeah.
a lot of the time they use that as like a sacred kind of totem on like sailing ships and stuff like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I remember thinking, I don't think I'll ever see that again. I never saw that again. So that was my first experience. But my second was twins, one born alive and one born passed away.
Oh.
And they never left me. That was about that story. That
Mm,
was for them. Yeah.
mm, mm,
Yeah.
mm.
So
Oh,
yeah, it was
thank.
just that I would never forget the room, they were staying in, and they had known that the baby had passed weeks before.
Okay.
And so they had expected this, but I remember thinking, oh my God, this is because I could feel both energies in that room. I could feel, death has a smell, like birth has a smell and death has a smell, and they're the same smell. It's so interesting. But I remember thinking, whoa, this is so similar. This like anticipation, adrenaline. I remember when my granny was passed, and I remember thinking, this is birth, like, because it was that same electricity. So, yeah, that's why that story was coming true in that way.
Oh, well, thank you. Because that was definitely my question was, about the origins of it.
Yeah.
And I'm also just curious for you about the fact that in certain ways, you've been pregnant with this story for a couple of years. Like, what's it like to have birthed it and to have spoken it aloud? Like, how are you feeling in this moment?
Oh, I just feel so excited. I feel like the Bangluna is a good friend of mine, and she's a teacher, and I think we're all craving a wise woman mentor.
Mm,
And I think we all have one in the other world.
mhm,
I think we're craving it deeply in this world to like have that teacher that like is like, I see your gift and let me
mm.
raise you as an apprentice. Or, we're looking for that so deeply. We really
Yeah.
are. And I found that in the other world through the band Ghlúine,
Mm,
because in Ireland, I went into midwifery and I was like, oh, this is definitely not what I was called to do,
mm,
as in midwifery was, but not in that way,
mhm,
because I would witness a baby coming into the world and the room would start spinning and I'd see portals opening. Like it was deeper. What was happening was deeper than what we do in Ireland.
yeah.
Home birth is very strict here. Like there's so much like litigation
Mm,
and stuff like that. So, but then I also had this part of me that was very shamanic and was going down that shamanic path. And I knew they were together. I knew
mm,
that midwifery and shamanism, they were the same thing. I felt it. But I didn't have any framework because there wasn't anybody else doing it here.
mm,
So It's been like picking up the pieces for me. It's actually about learning from other cultures and remembering my own. It's always been that way. Like looking to like the Mayan midwives who are practicing shamanism, midwifery, abdominal massage, all of that. They teach so much. But through the story, I could see the importance of the song and
Yeah.
the voice and the chanting and the
Mhm.
humming. Yeah.
Mm. Oh, yes. I want to linger a while with the way that the hum and the keen and just the whole orality of everything lingered. But I want to also just let you know how I received this story in the
Mm.
sense that, so here I am at home. Both of my daughters were born here at home because, we were actually, before we got on, we were talking about this sort of our two different cultures and the differences between the States and Ireland and which one feels more desirable to be in at this moment. And there's also beauty in the American system that, as you were naming, the expansiveness and the size, and also the way that states work that are offering us this ability for really safe and reliable home birth care that's
Mm.
sanctioned and covered by insurance and trusts women and midwives, as well as holding us within a system. But so I just want to name that I really feel as if my own births were sort of resacralized in this space. And also because we live in Hudson Valley in upstate New York, and we named our land the Burren when we first moved here because it's literally so rocky. Like it took a pickaxe for me to plant crocuses our very first year. So there's just ways in which, and I'll offer one more synchronicity in that one of my most memorable times in the Burren ever was going with my mom and my nana and her twin sister Yvette in
Whoa.
in 2000 and like doing the whole like lovely bus tour of the Burren as you did when your granny came to go to visit you when you were a junior year abroad. You would go and do Pull na Brone and all of that in the Burren. So there's just, I just want to say how I'm receiving this at so many levels, and just it just feels like such a gift in so many ways. So
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
yeah, the power of birth stories just to
Yeah.
remember and link back. So, but I want to be with this idea of the way you offered us the keen within the birthing chamber and
Mm.
that and as well as the humming that brought the babe through and supported the mother, and knowing that you're reading the story, but it only wants to be in a journal written backwards. Like there just feels as if that the resistance to being, because I was definitely, I'm like, oh my God, I want a copy of this. I want to really sit with this. And it's like, no, it's meant to be heard. So let's
Mm.
be with the voices of that a bit. If you can take us into, sounds like that's such a deep and powerful part of your process and knowing and wisdom.
Mm. Yeah, that's really beautiful because especially we're in this age where, I could speak that into AI and get it transcribed and have it all beautiful and pretty. But it's like, I mean, I was trying to translate my own writing as well because I was like, what does that even say? But
Oh.
sometimes we don't understand. I don't think we're meant to understand a lot of the time.
Mm. And that is both, again, in that sense of when we're speaking of the ancestors before, it's that sense of deeply, deeply comforting. And also it strains and stretches our really cerebral, intellectual selves that want to understand and that have been forced to understand by our culture to say, well, prove it. How do you know that? And that there is, I have deep and abiding respect for our academic and scholarly traditions that say, here, these are the sources. And
Mm.
yet also, where are those pre-verbal knowings that say, I can't translate this into something that can be footnoted for you to feel as if it's been proven in some, again, intellectual sense. It's that sense of ma is a sound that comes through from the belly up through the throat out to the mouth of so many beings across time to talk to all the different kinds of mothers that we've
Mm.
had and experienced.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's amazing because when we actually just allow sound to come, like if I'm ever holding like a keen or anything like that, the first thing that I'll say to people is, you might want to run away. Like you
Mm.
might feel like, I need to get out of here. Like this feels evil or
Mm,
dark, or because those sound, it's like all of our shadow in those ugly sounds, in those moans, in the groans of,
mm,
I love the word moan because it's like you could be moaning in orgasmic, like rapture, or moaning in birth, or moaning in death, or moaning
mm,
in pain. Like it's all that same sound of like, oh,
mhm,
oh, it's, but when we actually work with that, just we go so deep, and it helps in a group for me to say that beforehand. Just so you know, usually the first layer that comes up is religious fear all the
mm,
time.
mm,
Religious fear, this is the devil, or this
mm,
is dark, or this is,
mhm,
because it's like, whatever those like bodily noises are, you might feel like the horror movies or whatever.
mm,
Like that's the first layer that always comes up with women,
mhm,
religious
mm,
fear, like
mhm,
terror.
mm,
And then it's like, this is ugly, because I've had women like, I'm like, if you need to puke, puke. Like, I'm going to be here to wipe that up. That's the bang,
mm,
Ghlúine. If you need to dribble, dribble. If you need to spit, spit. Whatever you need to do
mhm,
to let it up. And like, so there's always that other layer of like, this isn't beautiful, or
mhm,
this is ugly. So yeah, they're definitely, but the sounds are
mm.
set, the amount of sound we've held back.
Yeah. Gosh, I'm flashing back to the first time I ever did a keen was in a workshop that you and Jen Murphy led. And I remember it must have been during the pandemic. So my husband was still working from home and I hadn't prepared him for like, it's going to get a little noisy in the office. And I remembered being in that sense of regret of like, oh, I should have either said something to him or I muted myself the entire time. And I remember a real sense of, I guess almost like a self-betrayal in that moment. Like I have a relationship that could have handled that. I've done weirder shit. I have birthed babies in the bathroom. He hath heard it all. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna do this on a Friday afternoon, love. And I don't know, I guess it's just those senses of there's so many layers of that which keeps us either silenced or quieted or just making sure we make the beautiful sounds rather than those which are truer and less sanctioned. And as you say, more ugly potentially.
Mm, yeah, that's a really big, important point that you said, because preparing it gives you permission. It's almost like,
Mm,
just so you know, I'm going to be making really weird sense. I'm good. All's
right.
good. Kids, just so you know, like I'm just in this workshop. It's mommy's witchy stuff, but I'm good.
Yep.
And then it gives you permission to go there.
Mhm.
So like I am always like, in advance, just so you know, like be somewhere where you can go there.
Right.
And that's what, like, a couple of weeks ago, I held a weekend in Crew, which is the Coilioch's home. And we did a keen, and it was amazing because we were in this like thatched cottage in Crew, and there was nobody. Crew was closed to the public because of the winter or whatever. It was all shut down. There was nobody there. And I was like to the women, you'll never have an opportunity to like go where you need to go because there is
Yeah.
nothing holding you back. And it's just
Yeah.
like full permission to be as loud and like wild and like
Mm,
primal. Oh my God, we're
mm,
all looking for that permission.
yes. So I'm so aware of the fact that we have a Brigid in this story as
Mhm.
you've told it. We're releasing this episode at in bulk time.
Mhm.
And I'd love to sort of just explore the role that Brigid's energy plays in your work and just what this moment in the year is saying to you. I know you've been doing a lot of work around Samhain and coming through the portal and entering into Imbolc tide, but let's linger there together if we could.
Yes. Bridget is one of those ones where I've had this deep connection to the Coilioch,
Mm,
and not so much to Brigid, even though Brigid is like the goddess of midwifery and childbirth and fertility. And I'm like, but it's like me and Bridget are like, hey, I see you, I see you. And like, it's like all about timing.
mhm,
And there's also a lesson in that for me because I love the Coilioch. I
mm,
love her. I was born on the 7th of November, like at Samhain at midnight. And I'm like, me and Kylie are like that.
Mhm.
Whereas my lesson is actually like the story to embrace all of life because I love the darkness. The darkness is my comfort. Like
Mm.
Samhain is my comfort. The shadows, they're all like I'm Scorpio. It's all like the descent. That's like I'm comfortable there. But my journey has been actually about expanding and trusting life and trusting expansion and pleasure and joy. Joy terrified me
Mm.
for a long time. The light terrified me.
Mm.
So it was like I had to expand how much pleasure I could hold in my nervous system because I was terrified of the ecstasy, the joy. And I know where it came from because it was linked to like this fear. I don't know whether it's this like deep witch wound, ancestral stuff. It's the fear of insanity that
Mm.
with all of this ecstasy and all of this joy, I'll lose my mind. I'll go insane. I'll be high. And I have an ancestor. Oh, I can feel her coming in. Brigid is her name. And she's an aunt, and she was tapped in, but at the wrong time in Ireland.
Mm.
So she's on my mum's side, so the Rileys, O'Reilly. And she stood up. I don't know the exact story, but I know she stood up and she was in church and she
Mhm.
was speaking. And she was put in an institution for the rest of her life and she died there, medicated. But when I wrote the book at the start of it, I have Brigid. Like, I know you weren't mad. I know you weren't mad.
Mm. Mhm.
But it's almost like I can feel that now I've done a lot of work in it and now I'm like all of life. And, had a beautiful year when I cracked through this kind of fear of pleasure and joy and ecstasy where I met my lovely husband and we got married and we're getting married again in Ireland. And there's just so much joy and ecstasy. But what my resistance was the fear of insanity, of all of the ecstatic. So I feel like this is my year with Brigid because I'm getting married in Imbolc in Ireland. And I feel like I feel her here. I feel her. She's still like watching me.
Mm.
But Brigid is that creatrix. I feel her like the priest. I feel her as a priestess, like very, very sexual. I actually feel quite a strong sexual energy from her, like that creative, sexual, sovereign. Yeah, so that's kind of my journey with Bridget. I went on a
Mm.
little rampage there, but Bridget and me have been like, I see you. I see you.
Oh, well, thank you for taking us into a Bridget that I don't think everybody knows by any means,
Yeah.
and knowing with, especially in the last few years as Bridget has emerged so powerfully. And it's just, I've heard that phrase in many ways where folks saying there's a Bridget, everyone has an ability to be a Bridget, and a Bridget shines through folks in so many different and distinct ways, which I don't know. There's still, to me, there's an integrity of her essence, though, that seems to kind of hold to say, it doesn't water her down though, in a holy well. There's water present, I suppose. But it's that sense of she has this remarkable number of facets that really enable her to. I do and don't love that phrase of meeting you where you are. But I feel like there is that quality within her that says, especially as your name, in that sense of kind of like, I see you over there. I'm aware of your existence. I'm not sure. And I've had a similar enough relationship with her in that way, but it's because she and I are so close that it's almost, instead of looking at each other across the room, it's almost like, well, we're right beside each other so we can catch each other out of the side eye because she's so within me that I
Mm,
sometimes forget how to find her because I think I'm seeing the whole world through her all the time.
mm.
Like, I mean, I picked Bridget as my confirmation name. And when I was 14, before I had a clue, other than it was my great great grandmother's name, though that particular great great grandmother was of Scottish extraction and went by Bertha because she didn't want an Irish maid's name. So to her, it
Wow.
was a name that had shame in it.
Mm.
And she couldn't and wouldn't claim it. And I did that before I even really discovered all of Ireland in myself. I kind of unwittingly reclaimed it for her. And it feels like that's part of my path too.
Wow. What do you feel from like what do you feel from Brigid when you're to feel into like this is the essence of her within me? What is that?
She has both a mother and a friend quality for me that really is. So I guess it's Anamkara energy. It's that soul friend energy. It's that sense of, I think also it's that sense of she catches me in all the different, in her traditions, whether it is that goddess and saint self, but she feels like she unites the parts of myself that are, I think I've finally come to recognize they aren't at war. They're just like, this is the stories that I get to be living that are constantly braided together. And so to me, she's that braid, and that coming back to self is to come back to her in a way that, I'm always wonder, like, is she goddess? Is she soul guide? Is she ancestor? Is she muse? Is she creature of the imaginal realm? Like, she's all of those things,
All of
but
it.
it becomes that sense of companionship of sweet sister, sweet daughter. You're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone.
Wow. There's so many things that I can feel just with everything you just said there. The union, I feel like that I really feel that from her, that sacred union of like the saint and the goddess, which is something that I know me and Jen have been working a lot because we have Dream Midwifery, which is just our new venture together. And there's such a holy energy. Like it feels so holy and divine. And we had to do loads of like religious, like clearing because we were just at the start, we were like, oh, no, God, no. And actually, like Hildegard von Bingen and everything is coming through. And we're just, so we had to do a lot of like integration from the
Mm-hmm.
church side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But I really feel that union of like saint and goddess. And I feel like the fact that her first story gifted to me was about birth and death.
Mm-hmm.
And like even when you think about Brigid, the 1st of February is the death. It's the death of Samhain that births Imbolc.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense because even in that story, like the death came first and then the
Yeah.
birth of life came after. So I'm just kind of making that connection now. But I feel that for me, I'm learning about the religion and medicine and the link that they had back
Mm-hmm.
in ancient times and still do in like in indigenous cultures. They still have the priest is the shaman and the priestess is the shaman, and I feel like Brigid is showing me how to navigate that, the divinity and the medicine as well.
Yes.
What I'm finding is the more that I do work on the religious trauma or resistance, the
Mm-hmm.
more I get to access the divine. And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's just so beautiful. And because beforehand I would have been like totally resistant, but now I feel like I can feel that unconditional love. I can feel that, yeah, there's just when you actually clear that layer, oh my God, yeah,
Yeah.
there's so much can come through. And even as the Bangluna said, like, you cannot do this work without the she.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That whole story showed us how Danu nodded when she was meant to sing or when she was meant to keen. Danu, like it was the ancestors who came when things needed to happen. Like the Bangluna sat back and witnessed, and she just did what she was told almost in a way. But like that's what I can also feel from that. It's like we cannot do this work without them.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
And that we don't necessarily have a choice in terms of where the magic flows through, where's the wisdom flows through. I can speak only for myself. When I went off to a college run by the Jesuits and decided that I was a witch and a pagan and I wanted nothing to do with those Catholic upbringing of mine. And it was an important part of development, but then it becomes after a time, it's like the resistance to the tides within myself, within the culture of the country that I love, that really help us say, wait, beyond our own moralizing of good and bad, there's always been this really deep and powerful mix. I mean, think about one of the most wonderful stories I know of Brigid is when she is midwife and soul sister to Mary. And the way in which, part of the reason why the placing of Brigid's Day within the church is because she was willing to walk into the church ahead of Mary on the day she was supposed to be churched, right? Do you know this story?
No.
Oh, so actually, I'll be re-releasing the very first episode of Not Work Storytelling. Kate Chadbourne tells this tale. So I'll link to that as well, but I'll do a quick version of it in the sense of, in that old way in which women had to be churched, like cleansed and purified before they were allowed to return to Mass after childbirth. Mary, who of course had somehow moved from Bethlehem to Ireland in short shrift, no problem, didn't want the attention. She didn't want to call attention to herself. She was a new mom. She didn't want all of this. But her friend Brigid turned to her and said, "Don't worry, I've got a solution." So she put a harrow on her head, like one of those big, like a rake in a way, and she lit it on fire. And so she walked in with essentially a headdress of flame full of candles in order to create a diversion so that Mary could kind of slip in the back and sit in the last pew. And meanwhile, Bridget's like, "Hello, hi lads, I'm here," in order just to help deflect and to hold. And, as you named even in your story, that sense of being with the birthing mother 2 weeks after, and that, the idea of whether it's 2 weeks or the fourth trimester, that sense of continuing to mother the mother as she reemerges and continues to need support. Like, how could we not hold on to that story of Brigid as well as whatever we have from, the deepest mythology and what we've gleaned in our own rituals and practices? We have her walking in with a flaming headdress in order to help a sister out. Like,
she's a legend. I feel like she's such a trickster as well. Yeah. She's a cool one. Yeah. I'm excited for this in bulk just to get to know her a little bit more. And every year I am like, this is my year, but I know this is the year where me and Danu, we're buddies. Yeah. Me and Pilot, we're buddies. Like Sheila, we're buddies. Bridget's been waiting.
Oh. And that's just such an invitation, I think, for all of us to hear in terms of like these spiritual developments are across a lifetime, and if there's that yearning within us to make some sort of connection to a deity or to a tradition or to a practice, like there's the wheel of the year offers us new opportunities all the time. So thank you for naming that.
Yeah.
So we could go on forever, but I feel as if it might be for now time to say farewell and to welcome you back to the show another time. But is there any place you want to send our listeners to find you and your work? You're always cooking up such magic.
Oh, yes. So, there's a few places. Well, my book is on Amazon, so you can get that. That's Woman, A Guide to Living Your Best Life, Sarah Richardson. And then I'm loving Substack at the moment. So I'm the Woman Word Collective. And also myself and Jen are in this incredible portal, Dream Midwifery, which we've created over a couple of years. It's been coming. And it was too big. It was too, the energy was so big that it frightened us for years. So we would be talking and then we'd be like, it was so big. And now we're able to hold it. So Dream Midwifery, that's beautiful. And we're doing lots with that. We've got our gorgeous podcast. And then we're also doing these month-long activations with people. So Substack is the main place, and Instagram, sarahrichardsonauthor.ie. And my website, that's sarahrichardson.ie.
I will link to all of those and hope that folks will find you and just keep diving deep into all that you offer. Thank you for your story today. Thank you for what was like a transmission of the Irish language of all these beautiful beings and ideas and deep, deep truths. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Not Work, Myth, and Storytelling. Please subscribe and review the show on your favorite podcast platform, and do share this episode with other lovers of mythology and story. By the way, Everyone is a lover of mythology and story, even if they've forgotten. Creating this show is a labor of love, and your support will help me continue to craft and share stories throughout this season and beyond. Please consider becoming a paid subscriber to my newsletter, Myth is Medicine, over on Substack, where you'll find new writing and conversations each week. You can find out more about my writing, my book, our online writing communities, as well as how to work with me as a writing coach at marisagowdy.com. Gratefully, I live, write, work, and record this podcast on the ancestral lands of the Munsee Lenape tribe, whose name means original people. Music on this show is performed by Beth Sweeney and Billy Hardy.